Now that we have the 2024 NHL draft completed, we've had a time to look at all the picks and analyze all the teams that did well and not so well. Today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on who are the biggest winners of the 2024 draft. And unfortunately, we have to put a few teams in the loser category who I think didn't do so well. We'll discuss those teams coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, it's the annual video we do after the NHL draft. Once all the picks are made, had a chance to review, analyze everything, and kind of determine who did the best and who certainly could have done better at the event. Certainly, there's all kinds of picks. We saw some trades, lots of things to digest. For one, when it comes to the winners, I have to say the experience at the Sphere. I mean, obviously, I wasn't there personally. Would have loved to have been, though. It looked like an absolutely incredible event place. The atmosphere just from the big screens, the venue just looked completely amazing. So I think for those in attendance and even being able to watch on TV, I think as fans for entertainment and even those who work in the league and get to be there, an amazing experience. We all get to win, and I really hope they maybe change their mind on moving to a new format next year. And if they could have the draft, in that type of place moving forward, I think it'd just be really cool. Honestly, I think it was a really well put on event, and I think everybody that got to attend or even watch gets to win because of the cool experience. So for that, NHL did a phenomenal job. The award ceremonies, they don't seem to do very well with, but these events, especially that one, was done exceptionally well. Another big winner was not so much a team, but the country of Norway. Norway has never had any of their players be selected in the first round of an NHL draft before, so that's historical in that sense. And not only did they get one, but they got two in the 2024 NHL draft, with Brandtzæg, Nygaard, and Solberg both going in the first round of the 24 NHL draft. So obviously for Norway to have two players go in round one, pretty awesome for them. I'm sure that a lot of Norwegian hockey fans have to be pumped to see their players kind of going higher in the draft. I mean, we've seen it in a lot of other countries that don't put out as many NHL players start to grow more in recent years as well. So just great to see all in all in that sense. When it comes to NHL teams, I think there's a lot that did really well and had a great day with the picks. Some did really well with some of the trades they made over the course of the 2 days. And then there were some teams that just, left you thinking they could have done more, so to speak. As far as the teams that, I'll start with the winners. For one of the teams, the San Jose Sharks, picking first overall, they already won, in my opinion, before the draft ever started because they won the draft lottery, and they knew they were getting Macklin Celebrini. So regardless of how the rest of their draft went, they were getting a franchise centerman. All they had to do was not screw that up, and they did. And they brought in Joe Thornton to make the pick, which was kind of cool as well. So a lot of teams obviously went for the Vegas approach, if you will, the showmanship, and just trying to, bring in a lot of special guests in to make the pick. Some of it was celebrities, some of it was, former great players of the organization, etc. So all in all, it was just a really well event, and the Sharks definitely walk away being a winner. I mean, Celebrini was just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, with the other trade they'd made to get up into the upper part of the first round, they walk away with defenseman Sam Dickinson of the London Knights. Phenomenal defenseman. A lot of the D went a little bit lower than we thought. There was a bigger run on forwards at the top of the draft than I kind of expected. So guys like Dickinson and Zeev Buium were, obviously a little bit lower. So clearly that helped teams like San Jose get one of these guys, which is probably what they were hoping for when they moved up in the first place. I think that to some degree, if they wouldn't have got a defenseman there that they really liked, they may have taken Cole Yzerman. Obviously, Cole Yzerman has played with Celebrini before. I think that was like plan B for them, but either way, they were going to be happy with what they got. But I think they were thrilled to get their hands on Dickinson at that point in the draft. Then some later picks that were good as well, like Chernyshov, the Russian player, ended up not going in the first round. They took him with the first pick of the second, so he was somebody they probably didn't expect to see there. So again, another case of best player available, and they just don't mess it up. Take the best player available, and they did. And then even Celine Wallenius later in the draft, another good pick as well. So to me, San Jose walked away with doing a real good job. I don't think we can really give them really any kind of negative attitude at all for any of their picks. I think they did really good. They lined themselves up great, and they didn't mess anything up. Montreal, definitely a big winner, mainly for not passing Demidov. They take Demidov at 5. There was a lot of teams trying to trade up and get ahead of them. It become pretty apparent in the day or two leading into the draft that they were definitely going to take him if he was available. I'm very much surprised how the draft ahead of them went, especially with Beckett Seneca going at 3. That took a lot. It kind of threw the draft off for a loop, because I know probably a few hours of the morning of the draft, there was a lot of speculation that the Ducks might do that. But really that was kind of threw everything off. If you look at all the mock drafts and what a lot of these so-called experts thought, even a day or two before that, it was not expected to be him at 3, which kind of threw off who was going to be available. And I think the teams at like 4, 5, 6 were probably like, oh, wow, this is going to change things for us. Then there was a lot of trade talk around the number 4 pick with Columbus. The rumor was if they hold a pick, they're probably taking Caden Lindstrom. But there was a number of teams, including Philadelphia. I think Calgary was trying to get up there as well. Chicago made a big pitch to try to get 2 and 4. They were offering picks, second round pick and the first rounder for next year. Lots of trade talk around there, but Montreal didn't have to worry. Nobody got ahead of them. They got their guy. They took Ivan Demidov. I do believe, and I know if some fans have told me different, I don't believe it. I honestly think they really have serious regrets not taking Minchkov last year. After learning that he was coming over way sooner than expected, all the concerns that they had are now gone. And Demidov came over to that event in Florida, put on my gold star, and his agent, Dan Milstein. And on honesty, like a lot of people left that event going, wow, this Demidov kid he's bigger than we thought. He's stronger than we thought. He speaks better English than we thought, and he's coming over to North America sooner than we thought, and a lot of those concerns just went right up the window. But he looks like a real good playmaking winger, might be one of the higher-end prospects they've ever had in a long, long time, and they did not pass on the opportunity to take him. You know, we've seen other cases lately where they did not take Minchkov. You know, in a case where they could have had Brady Tkachuk and took Kotkaniemi. I know it's a different regime, but, you know, they just... Again, sometimes when you're that high in the draft, you just kind of not screw up, basically, to just do what you should do based on what's in front of you, and they did. But they also get some good picks after. Michael Hage, later in the first round, a great pick as well. He's going to be, I think, a real good player, a real good kid, battled through a lot of adversity and still put up phenomenal numbers, and looks like he's got a lot of room for development. So I do like his upside. Grew up a Habs fan as well. That never hurts. And then they took Saku Koivu's kid as well later on in the subsequent rounds. So, I mean, you know, Koivu has a phenomenal history with the organization. His father did, Saku Koivu. So, I mean, I think they obviously see a lot of what they saw before. I mean, obviously, like, this is a player that, you know, you couldn't go wrong with where they picked him. I really like the idea. So, I mean, overall, Montreal did a really good job. They get themselves some really good players. We know they're stacked on D. They focused more on higher-end forwards, some centers and wingers, and they did a great job. So, overall, they're definitely in the winning category as well. I thought Chicago also had a phenomenal draft. Some might not rank it as high as some. I mean, and to be honest, I'd say Montreal and San Jose probably did better. We'll see, though. I mean, long term, some of these players at the top end of the draft are going to be difficult to really peg exactly how successful these picks were until they've had a chance to play, 3 to 5 years in the NHL. But Artem Levshunov, number 2 for Chicago, was believed to be their pick. That's who it turned out to be. A lot of people think he's going to be a star right shot defenseman. Again, no word on exactly how quickly he's going to the NHL, but it wouldn't be shocking if he plays another year of college. But Chicago ended up making some moves, and they ended up making 3 first-round picks with Levshunov, Bovair, and Vanacker. I really like what they did. Those are some 3 really good names to add in with their other prospect pool that they've already built. However, if you look at Chicago, they certainly need to get those other first rounders. We're dealing away a lot of other picks. They have way too many. They can't select all those people that they have with every single pick in the next few years. I do think, though, that if you look at who like Montreal walked away with, who San Jose walked away with, that the level of high-end prospects that Chicago was walking away with, not quite as strong as those two franchises. If you look at like Levshunov and Beauvais and Vanaker compared to like Demidov and Hayes or Celebrini and Dickinson, at the end of the day, Montreal and San Jose's picks, I think, have higher-end potential, but Chicago did do lots of moving to get those extra first-rounders, to get some pretty good players. They might not, and time will tell. Like I said, right now it doesn't look like Beauvais or Vanaker will have that high end potential like Dickinson or a Demidov or even a Hage, but they're still projecting to be pretty good players. So we'll see long term. The Utah franchise was definitely a winner. They had a massive splash at this draft. Not only did they draft well, they made two significant trades, bringing in a whole pair of top end D now, getting Mikhail Sergachev out of Tampa. That was a deal that nobody's seen coming. They also traded for John Marino. This team had no NHL defensemen ready to be signed not long ago when they were still the Coyotes. And of course, now they've got a few more signings, but they signed Valimaki. They've got Sean Dursey in the organization. Now they add Sergachev, Marino. That blue line is completely different now. Of course, with their pick, they took a player that was going to go right after them if they didn't take him. They took Tisha Ginla. Of course, Ginla was going to be going to Ottawa next. The Senators really wanted him, and if Utah wouldn't have taken him, Ottawa would have. Also, besides Ottawa, of course, the Flames would have definitely taken him had he been there. I didn't think he would be at 9 unless Calgary moved up to get him. But they took a Ginla with their first pick, so they didn't mess that up. They also traded for Sergachev and Marino. They had another first rounder with Baudouin. They had a really, really good couple of days. The Utah team and the new ownership there, Ryan Smith he described himself as not patient. He wants his team to be successful. He wants them to win, and he wants it to start immediately. So completely different approach than previous ownership with the Coyotes. Unlike any owner the Coyotes really ever had during their entire existence. So at the end of the day, this team is aggressive, and they're going to continue to be aggressive. They're expected in free agency to be going after some big names too. So we will see what they all end up doing. But at the end of the day here, the Utah franchise had a phenomenal first NHL draft in its existence. I'll give some kudos to Minnesota. Minnesota had an opportunity. If they wouldn't have moved up, it might not have happened, but they traded up when they saw the ability to grab Zeev Buium, the University of Denver product, who just seems to win everywhere as he goes. As described as being comparable to like a Scott Niedermayer. I can see why. He can play both sides of the ice. He's extremely smart, extremely great vision. He can control the game. It just has real star potential material there. I honestly thought he might go as one of the first D. I mean, we knew Levshunov had a real good chance to go at 2 to Chicago, but then in that next group, which would include Buium, Dickinson, obviously Slyev, Yakimchuk, like the group of 4 or 5 D there, I honestly thought he might be the first to go, and he actually wasn't. He was a few that went ahead of him. So when Minnesota seen that opportunity, they traded up, and that alone, to me, gets him on my winners list because, like I said, I really like this kid. I think he's going to be phenomenal. And you have him being a left shot, even though he can play both sides. But you can put him as a left shot on the strong side with Brock Faber. And we've seen how good Faber was this year. Buium is only going to be a year or two behind him getting to the NHL. In all honesty, that might be one of the top D pairs in the NHL once they both have a chance to get some experience. So, in all honesty, I'll give Bill Guerin a huge good grade just for that move alone, not to mention anything else they did. One of the teams I will also give a good grade to, even though I know some were kind of not so much, and I don't think they're as big of winners as Montreal, San Jose, Chicago, Utah, but I do like what the Senators did. I know some are kind of crapping on them here a little bit, but Carter Yakimchuk with their first pick to me was a great addition. The reason they went Yakimchuk over a guy like Buium or Dickinson, and we'll see long term if it was the right move or not, but I think part of it is the fact that he's got the right shot. If you look at Dickinson and Yakimchuk, to me, there's not a huge deal of difference between their games. And obviously Buium's a very different kind of defenseman, but they had a major objective. And if you look at their entire record here of drafting, they wanted size. Size was absolutely very important to the Senators. I think they've shown here that they're with what they've had in the last year or two in the NHL, some of their defense are too small. They're getting pushed around. They're not hard enough to play against. They do have some guys that can play that way, but not nearly enough. And what they liked about Yakimchuk was not only his ability to be a very offensive, good puck mover on the right side, which they're lacking, but he has the size, he has the skill, and he has that bite to his game where he can play physical. Whereas you're not going to get that style of game out of some of these other D. So that's why they liked him, and I do think that from that perspective, he might be a better fit for what they're looking for. I mean, Zane Parek's another name to look at that group of defensemen as well. Obviously, Parek is very offensive, a little smaller than Yakimchuk. Again, more comparable, I think, to Bouillon than anybody else. Those two are not exactly alike, but probably more close than the other guys, whereas Dickinson, Yakimchuk, probably a little closer than each other as well. Salayev's different again, where there's not a lot of offense. Does Yakimchuk have a few things to work on? Yes, he does. Obviously, there's that raw talent and that high-end ability. To me, it does make a lot of sense. But some of their other later picks look good as well. I mean, they took Gabriel Eliasson in their second pick. That one was a little confusing. He does look like he's big. He's a defenseman, and he's big, and he's one of the most violent players in the draft. So for that, okay, I get that, but he's very raw, very undisciplined, and definitely needs a lot of work. So to me, he's a little bit of a project. So I had a little concerns over that one. So I wasn't, as much as I don't mind him taking the player, I think they could have gone him with a later pick. But they took Lucas Alinas out of Kitchener. He looks like a real good center prospect. Javon Moore, Blake Montgomery, they're all big forwards that can play center or wing. Montgomery, to me, he's a re-entry kind of kid, 19 years old. Looks like he might be a little bit of a late bloomer to me. Not exactly, but kind of reminds me a little bit of Drake Batherson. It's the same kind of story, and they've proven in the past that some of these re-entry kids can be late bloomers and prove to be solid NHLers. So is it a given that any of these other guys make it? I think Alinas has probably the best shot, but Moore and Montgomery, to be honest, I think were pretty good picks. Like, they had a mission to get some kids with size and skill, and they did that. So they were addressing a major organizational need. So for that, I'm going to give them a good grade and call them a winner here. I know it's not as big of a winner nearly as Montreal, Chicago, San Jose, Utah, or Minnesota, but I do like what they did overall. Washington, I'm going to give them a good grade as well. Taking Tarek Periskak, and then Cole Hudson was a great second-round pick. I really thought Cole Hudson might go a little higher. I thought they might have learned teams to not sleep on him after what we've seen his brother do. He was a later pick too. But Washington, again, got a couple of... they weren't picking high, but they had some good options there, and they took advantage of them. So clearly, I like what they did. Calgary's another team that I thought was a major winner. Craig Conroy really and his staff did a phenomenal job. A lot of their picks look really, really good. Obviously, taking Zane Parekh with their first pick at 9 was a great choice. The fact that he was even there was a small surprise. So he has the potential to be your star defenseman, power play quarterback, lead the way offensively for sure. Andrew Basha, again, another Alberta kid who looks like he could be a real good player for him. Battaglia looks good. Henry Muse, a little bit of a project, but the Ottawa 67's right shot defenseman, again, high risk, high reward. Will play similar style to Parekh, but I think long-term Parekh will be a lot stronger on the defensive end once he matures. I think the potential's there. Right now, there is definitely room to grow defensively with decision-making. Luke Misa, another late pick that looks really good as well. I think Conroy and his staff in Calgary did a phenomenal job making use of all the picks to really kickstart this rebuild here. Some teams that I thought didn't do so well. The Winnipeg Jets right at the top of the list. Mainly, they didn't have a first rounder, and they could have gotten into the first round, in my opinion. We didn't see McGroarty traded. Ricker McGroarty, we know, doesn't want to be in Winnipeg. I'm not sure if his asking price was too high or what it is, but he didn't get moved. I thought they could have got a first rounder for him. Nick Ehlers reportedly wants a change of scenery. He wasn't moved. I thought a combination of those two guys could have gotten them at least one first round pick or maybe multiple picks in the first 2 rounds, and they didn't do it. No trades. Sheldon was quiet. And overall with Winnipeg, I just thought there was an opportunity there to really stock their prospect pool with some pretty good talent. and it didn't happen. So I don't really like their draft. Colorado's another one. I thought the Avalanche had a good opportunity with where they were picking in round 1 because they still had that pick to really add maybe like a good young centerman. They ended up moving out of the first round, which was not the end of the world, but I really thought, a guy like Cole Baudouin was kind of perfect for their organization. Instead, they moved back. They ended up taking a goalie in Nabokov, which I'm not completely opposed to. He's an older goalie out of Russia who looks like he could possibly be really good. And with where their goaltending depth is at, I understand that. But I thought they really had an opportunity to really add to their forward depth in the organization and didn't take it. So the fact that they moved back and gave up that opportunity, I would have rather seen them go that route, but we'll see long term if that works out. The Anaheim Ducks, to me, Pat Verbeek really loves Beckett Seneca. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player. Right now, I failed to see number 3 overall talent. I honestly think long term, this could be a major boo-boo, to be honest. I mean, they had an opportunity. Demidov was right there for them, and they didn't take him. I think Demidov would have been perfect for what they want. At the same time, clearly, Pat Verbeek, like I mentioned about Ottawa, really values size, strength, and skill combos more so than anything else, which is why they have so many speculation and rumors about moving Trevor Zegras. He doesn't play that style of game, which is why they love Mason McTavish. He's a power forward, power center, like in-your-face kind of guy. Take it to the net hard, not afraid to go to the dirty areas, where Zegras is all about the dipsy doodles and the skill. Whereas, that I can see driving Pat Verbeek nuts. But at the same time, like, can he not have a little bit of both? Like, I just thought they had an opportunity there. To me, Seneca, my concern over him is his highlight reel, if you watch him he's really good off the rush. And I just don't know how well his skill set's going to translate to the NHL. Now, we still have time. Number 3 overall pick. Clearly, he was shocked. His reaction was one of the highlights of the weekend and highlights of the draft. So, I don't know. I think he has potential to be a real good player. I'm not saying he won't play or he's not going to make it or nothing like that. I just think when we look back and we see the opportunity that was there for a Demidov or even a Tisha Ginla for that matter, I don't know that he's going to be as good as them. So, we'll see. We'll have to wait and see how things work out. But I did not like the fact that they really went in that direction. I don't see him being top 3 material. They did get Solberg later on at 23. I did like that. He's a very violent physical defenseman out of Norway. So clearly that was okay. And they took Lucas Pettersson early in the second round. I don't mind that either. Those, I think, were good picks. But their top 3 pick, I just think they had an opportunity to take somebody who, to me, is just a safer choice to really be a star player, and they didn't do it. I know there's a lot of people that love the Seneca kid, and I'm not saying that I don't. I just don't like him as much as a Ginla or Demidov, and I think the opportunity was missed there for them to take one of those guys. So we'll see long-term if I'm right or not. I'm putting the Leafs in this category as well, but they're probably going to make me eat my words because they did it last year. Easton Cowan last year was a surprise pick. He was not ranked nearly as high as he was selected. Same thing goes for Ben Danford, who they took in the first round. And again, this is probably a case of them not having a ton of draft capital. They've traded away a lot of their picks, trying to go for it in the playoffs every year for the last number of years, and that cuts down how many picks they have. But Danford was a player, depending on what scouting service you look at, was ranked anywhere from 50 to 70, and he was taken in the first round. But they also didn't have more picks in the second, third round that would have made more sense to use them on. So when they had a player, just like they did with Cowan, if they really want the player bad enough, they have to take him early. And again, Cowan has surprised. He had a phenomenal season. And right now it looks like an excellent pick. And maybe Danford will turn out to be that as well. But for right now, to me, it looks like a bit of a stretch. I think they could have gone with a safer route. And I'm not giving a good grade for that. Vegas, the host team here, Vegas didn't have a great draft. They the one pick they do take, Trevor Connolly. There's definitely some concerns over his off-ice stuff, which I get. At the same time, they feel like they've done their due diligence, and he feels like he's a different person, move forward. So I hope for everybody's sake that they're right, but they had an opportunity to avoid that. They didn't do it. They did do a good trade, though. I will give them that. The trade they made with New Jersey to get Holtz and Schmid for Cotter and a pick, which was pretty low return. That was good. They traded Logan Thompson while he was doing a autograph session, or I guess he found out right before Either way, it's kind of weird, but thankfully he still honored that. Good pro he is. I guess he wanted out as well. But at the end of the day, I just think being the home host team would have liked to see them make more of a splash and maybe make a pick that wouldn't have been, the one main controversial player in the first round. Edmonton, again, I'm going to give them the same kind of grade as Toronto here, like just underwhelming. I do like Sam O'Reilly. Don't get me wrong, but to me, this was potentially a bad move long term because they traded up to get into the first round to get that pick, and they gave up a first round pick for like one of the next 2 years. And I know there's some conditions on it, but I'm like, okay, like O'Reilly's a good player. I do like the fit with Edmonton. It has nothing about the player, but if they would have been in that position anyways and gotten them without having to make a move, great pick. I would say you did a good job. But the fact of what you gave up to get there, I think that's very, very, very risky. And now if you win the Stanley Cup next year and it's pick 32, okay, maybe it's not, but that's far from a guarantee. So to me, it's just a lot of unnecessary risk for a player that, yeah, he's a good prospect, and I think he has decent potential to work out and be a player. Hard to say, though. I mean, there's unfortunately more players don't make it than do. If you look at how many players are selected every year, the failure rate, unfortunately, is very high. That's just common sense and stats speaking. Again, I like this player. I think he's a good fit, but I just don't know if you're a team that really needs to add an unnecessary risk. Because to me, the time you want to consider maybe moving a first-round pick is at the trade deadline. You're making the playoffs. You want to bulk up and try to win the Stanley Cup. And now that's one less asset, one less tool in their arsenal here that they don't have at next year's deadline to try to add more to go for the Cup again. Assuming that they're in position to do so, which you would think the odds would be good of that. So that's why I don't like it. I just don't know if O'Reilly is strong enough, and hopefully he proves that he is. Otherwise, it's just bad asset management, in my opinion. If they could have got the player more organically without giving that up, that would have been better. But for me, I just thought the Oilers, unnecessary. Didn't need to do that. Anyways, from that perspective, I don't like it. Another, I guess, it's not a team, but on the losing side of things, what's going on in the QMJHL, the Quebec? It used to be the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Now it's the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League, of course, because they have teams here in Atlantic Canada as well. But they had no first-round picks from that league at all for the second year in a row. And the number of picks coming out of that league the last couple of years is very, very, very low. So they've got to ask themselves some hard questions about why is that? Why are not more of our players developing and getting up to that level? I mean, it used to be a time when it was a given you're going to see one of them in the top 10. Obviously even back to like the Crosby era. Crosby came from the Quebec League first overall. Marc-Andre Fleury came from the Quebec League first overall. Mario Lemieux back in the 80s. Like there's been lots of great history there, but more lately it's like, not only are you not getting those first overall picks or those real high first rounders, but you're not even getting any first rounders. That to me, that league has to ask themselves some hard questions as to why that is. So those are the teams, and of course some other things that I think are the biggest winners and losers of the 2024 NHL draft. Obviously, some of you will agree and disagree with what I had to say, so certainly leave me some comments on which teams you think did the best, which ones had opportunities to do better. I could sit here and talk about every single team, but the video would be way too long. These are kind of the high level that I think teams did the best and the not so best, so to speak. So let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe. Stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all things around the NHL, all 32 teams. Lots of trades and free agency stuff coming up, so stay tuned for that. We'll keep you up to date. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.